All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for a couple of real people out there, just like you and just like me. So, in honor of our friends north of the border and the Canadian truck drivers who are doing the Lord's work, literally, I have decided to do my top 10 favorite Canadian bands of all time, maybe with a couple of honorable mentions to those who didn't make the list. Now, these are bands, okay? These aren't solo artists, so there's not going to be Bryan Adams, just want to let you know. There's not going to be Joni Mitchell, and that's probably appropriate. There's not going to be Neil Young either, okay? So anyway, I grew up listening to rock stations during the 1980s. So I'm going to give you my own personal top 10, going from number 10 all the way to number 1. And I'll tell you my reasoning for each one. At number 10 is a band called Prism. Prism from Canada. Probably one of the first albums I ever bought in the early 1980s, a song called Don't Let Him Know, which was all over rock radio, hit number 1 on the mainstream rock charts. And the band here in the United States just went away after that. Not sure how well they did in Canada, but Prism was a pretty cool thing. I love the album. I played it from start to finish. I think there was another track on the album that got some radio airplay on my favorite radio station at the time, which was 94 HJY, coming out of Providence, Rhode Island. They had an affinity for that particular song, and they played the crap out of it. At number 10 is the band Prism. And yes, I know they have bigger songs in Canada because, again, these are two different radio markets, and radio was very different in both of those markets. So at number 10 is Prism. At number 9 is Red Rider. Holy crap, Batman. Where did Red Rider go, right? Of course, it's Lunatic Fringe, but there's so many other great cuts from Red Rider. Tom Cochrane would go on to be his own thing, and deservedly so. But Red Rider was this sort of dark, spooky, but yet very melodic and very interesting band. Lunatic Fringe should be in like a staple on any nighttime driving playlist. Might scare a few of your friends who aren't familiar with the song. At number 8 is Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf, the great rock and roll Hall of Fame omission, a band that was sticking it to the man back in the late 60s and early 70s. Not sure why they're not in the Rock Hall, because they influenced a bazillion people that came later. And an iconic anthem of that time, Born to Be Wild, but so many other great songs. John Kay and Steppenwolf at number 8 on my list. Arguably, you could put them higher, but because I was born a little later, I am looking at the bands that I listen to a little bit more than Steppenwolf, but just, you know, you could put them number 1 on this list if you wanted to. At number 7 is Honeymoon Suite. Holy crap, Batman. An amazing band that can't even get the time of day on radio here in the United States. New Girl Now, yes, but so many other great cuts, at least a half dozen rock radio singles, and just a cool band. Honeymoon Suite. Gotta love the album cover with the spikes on the bed shaped like a heart. I just never forget that. It was a great album cover. At number 6, Bachman Turner Overdrive, otherwise known as BTO. What else do you need to say? BTO? They're way more than taking care of business, people, okay? Hey You. I mean, there's so many amazing songs. I used to hear this tune late at night called Looking Out for Number One by BTO, and that showed like Randy Bachman's more jazzy side to him. But this was just such a great band. And don't forget about Fred Turner. Fred Turner, who had that gravel dump truck voice, along with the very contrasting Randy Bachman, just such a great band. Had a comeback about 10 years ago, which was stupendous. And it helped me get reacquainted with BTO. They come in at number 6 on my list. At number 5, and this band for me back in 1981 was the quintessential rock band that I was interested in at that time. I'm talking about April Wine, just a spectacular group. Sign of the Gypsy Queen, Just Between You and Me. In fact, that whole album, Nature of the Beast, from start to finish, just, you know, put it on and listen to it. They had other singles that would come later, like Enough Is Enough, which is just such a good song. And This Could Be the Right One. They were dominating rock radio for a few years. They had a bunch of songs that were on the radio and that were amazing songs. And it's kind of tragic that nobody plays April Wine even today. It's just sad. I know north of the border, they are rock royalty, and deservedly so. At number 4, Loverboy. You know, hey, sue me, right? Everybody says Loverboy is too cheesy. Mike Reno, just a beast on lead vocals. And Get Lucky was one of those sort of watershed moments for guys like me who were interested at that point in more rock and stuff with attitude, little bit of new wave going on there. But I know the lyrics are extremely cheesy, and I'm sure the band would tell you, yeah, we weren't trying to be Shakespeare. We were into hot girls, and that's what they sang about. At least they weren't Motley Crue, right? At least they kept it a little bit more under control. But Loverboy, such a great, great band. And they've got a new single out you should probably go check out. I liked it, but, you know, radio doesn't care. And number 3 is Rush. Now, again, a lot of these Canadian rock band lists, Rush is going to be number 1. I get that. I understand that. But for me, Rush is at number 3. The thing that bothers me about the way Rush is treated today is that they're way more than just the one album, Moving Pictures. Even here in the States, Signals was just as important, that came after it, and a whole slew of albums after that, and a bunch even before that. Rush has been focus tested down to like Tom Sawyer. Okay, great song. I can't even believe I'm saying this, because it's just sad how shallow radio programming has become. And if you're going to program a good rock station, how about some variety, Batman? How about putting some stuff in there? Just a little bit ridiculous. And I'm just frustrated that I have to tell people to play more Rush and play some variety. I mean, they've got, I don't know how many albums. I mean, the experts will know. I'm just kind of winging it here. But I love Rush, and they're at number 3. At number 2 is Triumph for me. Triumph, because they're so maligned and so forgotten about. Ted Nugent came on the show, by the way, and talked about Triumph, and I totally agree with him. I mean, Triumph is the quintessential rock band, period. Like, they're just amazing. And again, they're more than just 1 or 2 albums, you know, Allied Forces. There are a lot of great songs. You would probably benefit from getting like a best of Triumph compilation, or you can buy each individual album. Really got going on the album Just a Game, which I owned, and I'm like, who are these guys? How do they sound so good? Again, power trio, much like Rush, but a little bit more accessible, I would say, in some ways. Although, again, Rush put out so much more music that you could make the argument that they were more accessible than Triumph. But again, just a super amazing band from Canada. and they deserve more than just, an occasional spin. I don't even hear Magic Power anymore here in the United States. I don't hear that song. That is such an uplifting, amazing song. Magic Power is to Triumph as like Don't Stop Believin' is to Journey. It's like a math equation. Nobody plays the song by Triumph, though, Magic Power, which is absolutely stunning. And number one on my list, and you may disagree with this, but you can argue with me all day long, and I'm just going to say, yeah, the Guess Who. The Guess Who, to me, are... Why aren't they in the Rock Hall of Fame? The Guess Who? Randy Bachman is back again. He's on this list twice, BTO and the Guess Who. And that Burton Cummings guy, not a bad singer, not a bad songwriter, from the late 60s into like the early to mid 70s. I mean, these guys wrote amazing songs and they were great musicians. And they are the best of Canada as far as I'm concerned. Again, you can argue about Rush, you can argue about Triumph, but the Guess Who, to me, there's something exquisite about the Guess Who. They are a finer wine. They are a better brew. They are just, I don't know. There are a lot of American bands that are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that don't even compare to the Guess Who, meaning that the Guess Who is just light years better. And I was listening to the Guess Who as a little kid when this song called Undone came on the radio, and I'm like, what is that? And there's so much emotion and the hooks they wrote and the lyrics, and there's just like, why aren't they in the Hall of Fame? Anyway, that's my list of top 10 Canadian bands. Honorable mentions, Colin James gets one, blues guitar player. Again, he's a solo artist, so, but he's got a band. Gordon Lightfoot gets an honorable mention. Again, not a band. Coney Hatch would be a good honorable mention. Kim Mitchell. I mean, all the Canadians, they'll hit me with all these other ones that we here in America, we don't even know. Mahogany Rush. Is anybody going to really care about them here in the States? Probably not, but absolutely fantastic and amazing. Obviously, the Jeff Healey Band could have been on that list. I could have probably knocked out Prism and put the Jeff Healey Band in there. Technically, Jeff Healey probably more important than Prism on my list, but growing up listening to rock radio, Prism I really got into for a little while. So again, I'm showing bias, okay, because it's my channel and it's my bias, but you might have your own list. I did this to pay tribute to Canada because of those amazing Canadian truckers. And if you're in a truck in Canada and you're watching my videos, crank up some Triumph, blast some of the Guess Who. Obviously, you guys are probably playing Rush, right? Because that's what you do. April Wine, again, Nature of the Beast, start to finish. I mean, great music from north of the border, and they deserve way more respect than they typically get here in the United States. And yeah, it's kind of tragic, but that's rock radio right now. Rock radio is a very tragic format, and they're not catering to geezers like me anymore. What they're catering to is kind of a monolithic sound, which has been in place now for about 31 years or so, 32 years. And it just is, it's depressing. But we shall overcome, right? We'll try. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to tip your bartenders and waitresses, meaning don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Patreon for just a measly $1 a month. If you want to do more, that's cool. Check out my other channel called The Real Media Observer, observing real crappy media in real time for real people, just like you and just like me. All right. Thanks again. See you soon.